The views expressed by the host on this show make more sense than anything anybody else out there happens to be saying. You know why that is? Empathy, my friends, empathy. And an unstoppable, relentless pursuit of the truth as we meet and surpass all audience expectations every day. Telephone number 800-282-2882. The email address, ilrushbo@eibnet.com. So again, best definition of conservatism. For those of you who didn't see the debate, I know this kind of leaves you in the dark because you don't know when you're relying on somebody to tell you. And I will at some point, but I want people in the audience to think about this. These are things that the post-debate analysis didn't even get into. And the post-debate, and I mean everywhere, the post-debate analysis on Rubio was that he made a fool of himself, that he exposed himself as unprepared, robotic, nervous, not worthy of the bump that he got coming out of Iowa, may have in fact been like the Dan Quayle moment. That was Britt Hume's take on Fox News. If you don't remember that, Dan Quayle was George H.W. Bush's vice presidential nominee and having a vice presidential debate. And Lloyd Bentsen, known here as Lord Bentsen because he's one of these left-wing Democrat aristocrats from Texas, was debating. Was it a vice president? It was a vice president. Yeah, that's right. It was. Would this have been? Well, I forget the year. Anyway, during a discussion of inexperience, I believe it was, Quayle happened to mention that JFK was not that experienced when he was elected president after serving just a short period of time in the Senate, and Lord Bentsen pounced. Lord Bentsen said, "I knew JFK. John Kennedy was a friend of mine, and you, Senator, are no John Kennedy." And the roof came off the place. It was total humiliation. It was one of the most, just devastating slams ever to have been witnessed in politics. And poor Mr. Quayle had the deer in the headlight eyes for a while before he tried to recover from it. That's what many said happened to Rubio Saturday night. Now, I'm here to tell you that it was nowhere near that, but it wasn't good. Rubio did seem to be unable to say anything else at certain times in the debate. But the question is, how did people who are going to vote in this thing see it versus how do the analysts see it? I am convinced, after so many years of doing this, that, and it's common. It happens. I've always been amazed. Sorry for the stutter around here. I'm looking for the best way to say this. The way debate performances are analyzed as though people waiting to vote actually have their votes so insecurely attached to themselves they can watch a debate and see one slip up, and that can mean, oops, that's it. When I hear somebody, Rubio had a bad night, very bad night. Well, Rubio fans who are committed are not going to abandon him for this. Maybe people who are not, maybe leaning Rubio, yeah, but it takes more than this to talk committed supporters out of a candidate. This is just not the way that people make up their minds. In fact, there's even some good analysis that debates are not that big a factor in choosing a candidate. In presidential debates, I remember, not recently, but back in I forget the years, but it's not all that new that debates have taken on more importance than they used to. Snerdley's frowning at it. The old saw has always been that debates really don't change things much at the presidential level. Now, that's always been a rule of thumb based and backed up on polling data. But the way these things get analyzed afterwards, it's almost like analyze a football game, and you get mad at a wide receiver dropped a certain touchdown pass, and that's why the team lost. Well, when you're analyzing a football game, you already know who won, you already know who lost, and you can factor all these things in hindsight. But a debate takes place long before there's a result, and nobody really knows how any of these myriad number of things that happen in a debate are going to affect the outcome and individual votes. For example, the definition of conservatism question may not be as harmful to candidates in New Hampshire as it could be in other states, because the electorate in New Hampshire is made up a lot of moderates and independents. They have their share of conservatives, but it may not be as big a deal as if you fudge that question in South Carolina, for example. But there's some people that really got that question horribly bad wrong. I mean, embarrassingly bad wrong Saturday night. Isn't it kind of fundamental? Define conservatism. There were some people that were embarrassingly bad on it. Not one comment post-debate. Also on the post-debate analysis of Rubio and Christie. Yeah, Rubio did not look good. There's no sense in you Rubio people trying to mask this. It was not his best. He did repeat it over and over again, and it did look at times like he had forgotten anything else to say. You have to admit it. But what nobody else talked about is how did Christie look on the attack? And did that help him? And then there's another question if you're going to go this route. And it's a serious question as well that nobody can answer. Okay, let's say you assume that Rubio's performance in the debate with this repetition of his claim that Obama is not incompetent and what he's doing is not accidental. If that's going to hurt Rubio, who's going to end up being helped? If that is going to cause people voting for Rubio to not vote for Rubio, where are they going to go? Does it mean they're going to go to Christie? Well, this is what you would be led to believe by post-debate analysis, that if in this confrontation, Christie, if this is the way you look at it, exposed Rubio, then isn't it natural Rubio would pick up the Christie vote, or Christie would pick up the Rubio votes that Rubio is going to lose, because I don't think that's the way it works. I think if Rubio actually loses votes, you know where they're going to go? Ted Cruz. They're not going to go to John Kasich, and they're not going to go to Christie, and they're not going to go to Jeb. But depending on what you want to happen, if you're an analyst on television or radio after one of these debates, and you have a desired outcome, which they all do, silly for people to deny it, if indeed Rubio screwed up and lost the support, where does it go? Where does a disappointed Rubio voter go? And they make the automatic conclusion they're going to go to Christie, because Christie's the guy that exposed him. And I don't think there's any evidence of that at all. And I don't think there's any formula that would be predictive of something like that. I think if you want to answer that, you have to say, okay, why do Rubio's supporters support him, and who's closest to him if somebody gets soured on Rubio? And then you figure out where they go. Might they go Carson? No. I mean, how many people are going to knowingly vote for somebody they know is not going to win this thing? You realize 4 or 5 candidates are going to get votes from people who know they haven't got a prayer. There is an intricacy and a complexity to this that makes predicting it by virtue of what you think are missteps in a debate impossible to do. I am still not convinced that Trump had a problem in Iowa solely because he didn't go to the debate. It may be a factor, but it's not the sole factor. By the same token, Trump in this debate for Trump, he was awesome. When the subject of eminent domain came up, when something that Trump believes in passionately comes up, get out of the way. There isn't going to be anybody change his mind. There isn't anybody going to make him question what he believes, and he's going to destroy anybody disagrees with him. And he firmly believes in eminent domain. Now, many people on the Republican conservative side immediately withdraw from eminent domain because they think it's nothing but big government times 10 stealing and taking people's property, not compensating them fairly. And here's the leading Republican candidate extolling the virtues of eminent domain in a way that most voters have never heard. Because most candidates would not dare promote, defend, advocate eminent domain. But Trump, as a builder and somebody who encounters the need for eminent domain throughout his business, has hands-on experience with it. Says, you want the pipeline? You couldn't get 10 feet of it without eminent domain. You want your highways? You want your roads, your bridges? I hear everybody talking about infrastructure rebuilding. You can't do it without eminent domain. If somebody, and here's the kicker, if somebody gets screwed in a deal, it's because they didn't do a good enough deal with the government when the government came in and wanted their property. If the government comes in and wants your property, make a killer deal. They've got an endless supply of money. You hold them up. You don't give it away, you hold them up. And he ends up blaming the people who get screwed by eminent domain for making lousy deals. Who does that? So there's Trump out there being Trump, full and full, through and through. And Jeb Bush decided to get into it with him on this. Say, well, the difference is that, yes, Donald's right when you're talking about public sector and government eminent domain. But Donald Trump is not that. When Donald Trump wants your property to build a casino, or when Donald Trump wants your property to build a road or a bridge, that's when you're going to get shafted. And Trump's sitting there making faces and acting frustrated and poo-pooing Jeb away. And then shushes him up. Just be quiet. You don't even know what you're talking about. Jeb, he's trying to look big again. Jeb trying to look tough. It's not working, Jeb. It's not working. Here's another shining moment for Trump. Trump's getting booed throughout this whole thing. And after a while, he gets fed up with getting booed because he thinks he's making brilliant points. He's making points that normally bring the House down with standing ovations. He's getting booed. So he finally decides to give it up. And he tells everybody, the reason I'm getting booed in here is because the only people in the audience are a bunch of donors. I tried to get tickets for my supporters, and they said you can have 20. That's why I'm getting booed. You got people in here who don't like Trump. You've got the donors, you've got the lobbyists, you got the K Street people, you've got these people who want Jeb, you got these people who want all these moderates in here, and that's why I'm getting booed. My fans were not allowed in here. Place booed, but nobody denied what he said. They might have ripped him for blowing cover, but nobody denied what he said. So, I mean, it was filled with this debate was filled with great moments for many of the candidates. But if you rely solely on the post-debate analysis for your cues, you're going to miss because some of it doesn't register with them. Like when they were asked to define conservatism. I guarantee that question, that's when I would venture to say that if any of the professional political people in the audience at TV networks, moderators, analysts, that they might have taken a couple of minutes off during that answer because they don't think it's relevant. It doesn't matter. What do you mean define conservative? That's not it. But the viewing audience, that's everything to them. Who is and who isn't a conservative and who can and cannot explain why. And as I say, some of these candidates botched it big as possible. Some of them nailed it.